up, Kryptonians? First and foremost, I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I hope everybody is enjoying whatever time you have, whether you're with your family or you're by yourself. I hope you had a good time. I am not actually on my set. I'm not in my house. I'm actually visiting with some people for Christmas. So it's going to take a few days for me to get back to my house. So yes, I'm in a bathroom at somebody else's house. But whatever, the video's got to get done. Today I am reviewing Wonder Woman 1984, which, if you guys don't know, is simultaneously being released in theaters and also in HBO Max. Whichever way you did it, I hope you did it safe and I hope you enjoyed it. But today we're going to talk about it without spoilers. This film is directed by Patty Jenkins, who also directed the first Wonder Woman movie, and it also stars Gal Gadot. Okay, it's not Gal Gadot. I know it's Gal Gadot. I know it's Gal Gadot. Its problem is I've just called her Gal Gadot for so long that it just feels like that's what her name should be. And then when somebody came to me a few years ago and was like, nah, it's Gal Gadot, I'm like, you can't shatter my worldview. Who the fuck you think you are? Gal Gadot, who is actually Gal Gadot, is in this movie. And also Chris Pine is returning in this movie as Steve Trevor. You've got Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord. You've also got Kristen Wiig as Cheetah. The story, if you haven't guessed already, takes place in 1984. It's set a few decades after the events of the first Wonder Woman film. This film, Diana is kind of quietly being Wonder Woman, and I don't want to give away too much with the plot. What I will say is that Maxwell Lord is a villain who kind of gets his hands on an object, sort of is able to grant wishes to a lot of people. These wishes escalate things in the movie, and it makes everything a lot more dangerous than what it is. So it's up to Diana and Steve to try to figure out how to stop Maxwell Lord. And then Cheetah is kind of in the mix as well, and that's really all I want to say about the story, because anything else would feel like a spoiler. This movie has just been delayed and delayed so many times. Then it finally came out and everybody was watching it except for me. I hadn't had a chance to see it yet, so I just saw opinions on this thing were flying all over the place. An interesting thing is that this movie is probably more geared towards general audiences, casual moviegoers. So in that sense, I feel like people should enjoy this movie. But at the same time, if you look at the fans of the DCEU, I feel like this movie is gonna split people in half. It's gonna be very polarizing. Before I go any further, I do just want to acknowledge my Lord and Savior, my queen, Gal Gadot, my wife. The woman is just absolutely stunning, and I just feel like it's our responsibility as moviegoers to recognize that fact. There are a lot of scenes where actors and characters are kind of being pushed to a certain breaking point, and I do appreciate the fact that Patty put these actors and actresses in position to get more emotional with their scenes. And so there are definitely some scenes and some sequences that are gonna tug at the heartstrings, make you feel a little bit something. That's the best thing that the movie has going for it, is that it has that constant emotional core throughout that can still keep you invested in the characters and in the actors and actresses, who, by the way, are all acting their asses off. Gal has been, I think, really good as Wonder Woman before, obviously, but this movie, she completely owns it. Like, she is Wonder Woman the way that she's never been before. This is definitely her best performance overall as Wonder Woman. Through a large portion of this movie, she's kind of carrying this movie on her back in certain points. Her and Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine. Chris Pine is back in this movie, and while his character is not given as much to do, maybe, as the first time around, he's still a really great addition. His chemistry with Gal is so magnetic and so endearing, and you love seeing them together. You love their scenes. I don't want to give anything away with Steve Trevor except for spoilers, so I'll save more of my thoughts on that later. But for now, just know that he was great, Gal was great, and they were great together. Likewise, the other performances in the movie are pretty good. Pedro Pascal is Maxwell Lord. He's charismatic, but he also has this dark greed and this edge to his character that I really like. And likewise, Kristen Wiig was a kind of divisive casting choice, because she's usually used to being funny in a lot of the stuff that she's in, but she also has great moments in this movie, does have some dramatic weight to some of her scenes. And I did appreciate seeing her evolution from the character that she is as Barbara in this movie, and seeing her kind of slowly transform into a villain throughout the film. I did appreciate a lot of aspects of that journey. It's not enough for me to say that Hans Zimmer is a legend, a beast, a god, all of those things. Like, we all know that, so I'm not gonna waste your time telling you that Hans Zimmer made a good music score, because you would believe that no matter what I told you. What I will say, however, is that this is actually one of the best music scores that I think has ever been composed in superhero history. Like, if you go back and look at all of the great musical scores for superhero movies, this one is probably going to be at close to the top of my list. Like, it's got to be top 5 for me. Absolutely snapped on this thing. Like, the music in this movie is enthralling. It's the perfect type of musical cues that can take a scene from a 5 to a 10, and he does that several times throughout the runtime. There's also one tiny aspect to the musical score where they kind of reuse something that I wasn't sure they were going to reuse. I'm not going to spoil the context, but my God, it was amazing. It was incredible. It was a great moment in the film. Me, personally, I had eyes in my tears, and that didn't make sense, but I feel like you kind of understand what I'm saying anyways. So you know, music was great. That's all I'm trying to say. Obviously, this movie takes place in the 80s, so that was a big theme of the 80s, is more, 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 and how everybody just wants more. Like, that's a big idea in the movie. But also the idea that maybe the stuff that you want can come at a cost, not just personally to you, but it can come at a cost to somebody else. The lying and cheating to get your way, or at least trying to take shortcuts through life, sometimes that can have damage of a collateral nature as far as like the world around you. And I really appreciated those messages. I thought most of that was well executed with the characters in the movie. Most of that would seem like I actually kind of enjoyed the movie. And to a certain point, I did sort of enjoy the movie. Unfortunately, I did walk out of this movie very underwhelmed, very disappointed. This is not the sequel I was hoping to see. It's the sequel I got, and it's not the one I hope to see. I was actually pretty disappointed with the way that they handled the villains and their arcs in this movie. Maxwell Lord, you do kind of understand what he's doing at a certain point, but then at a certain point in the movie, he just kind of goes off the deep end and you lose sight and you lose track of what he's doing and what he's trying to accomplish. It's like they take some of the more important parts of his character development and they leave it out of the movie, and then they try to cram it in there at the end of the movie. And at that point, to me, the damage was done, and he had already kind of transformed into a cartoonish kind of character, so I didn't really care at that point. For Cheetah, I'll say it like this. She felt like a main character that somehow got pushed into being the side character, because her transformation into, as far as her becoming Cheetah, was actually, like, I was on board with that. When it comes to her finally completing the last step of her journey, it feels like we really rushed to get to that point, and it feels like she kind of became Cheetah in this movie because, oh, we need Diana to fight somebody. Now, the fight scene itself was cool, but I'm just saying, it didn't feel organically earned throughout the narrative in the movie. There's also some very jarring shifts in tone throughout this film that I wasn't completely on board with. There are some moments that work where it feels like the movie just kind of, it's reckless abandon, and they just throw caution to the winds and they just allow certain things to happen. But the movie, I think, at times is a little bit too ambitious for its own good. There are gigantic leaps in logic throughout the narrative and the screenplay. They try to ask you to believe in something, and unfortunately, with the rules that are established in the movie, or even in the universe in general, it just doesn't feel like it fits. At the end of this film, there were some absurd leaps. There were some questions that I had that the movie's not really that interested in answering. There's just too many issues that pop up from a storytelling perspective in this movie, where it just feels like either it was lazy or it was uninspired, or it feels like they just weren't that interested in really fleshing this movie out. But at the same time, they make things take longer than they need to get to the point. Probably a lot more that I want to say about the movie, but I can't say because I don't want to spoil it, because I know not everybody has had a chance to see it yet. Wonder Woman 1984 had some good moments, but it was frustratingly average, so it belongs in the Fortress of Solitude. Guys, those are my thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984. Tell me, have you seen the movie? And if you did see it, without spoiling it, what did you think about it? Give me your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. I have a lot of stuff to catch up on and cram into the end of 2020, so stay tuned for that. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. And as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.